Hello everybody, this is Ms. Zanda from the Youth Symphony, and today in this video we will be reviewing our finger patterns and some of our scales. To get started, just to brush up on a little bit on our terminology, we gotta make sure we really understand the difference between half steps and whole steps. So for violins and viola, this will be the same for you. A whole step is when your fingers are not touching. So that means that there is a space between your fingers, and that means that you can separate your fingers. So if you go like this, it's a W for a whole step. Now a half step is the opposite, which would be that your fingers are touching close together. Make sure that you really understand the difference between a half step when your fingers are close together and a whole step when your fingers are separated apart. Now for cellos, this will be a little bit more different for you guys because your fingers never quite really touch. So when you gotta make sure that when you put first finger down, your whole step will be if you're skipping a finger. So for example, if you put 1 and then you put 3 down, that is a whole step because you skipped the second finger, correct? Now, if you want to make a half step, you would put the next finger that would follow the finger that you just put down. So it would be the fourth finger. So if you're putting down 2 fingers at the same time, that is a whole step. If you are putting just 1 finger, for example, as well, if you put 1 or 2, that would be considered your half step. Now for basses, this is almost the exact same thing for you guys. If you skip to 4, that is a whole step, and your second finger will be the middle finger, which would be the half step in your instrument. Now we will review 3 different finger patterns. For violins and viola, this will be the same. So let's review first finger pattern. You're going to put your instrument up, and you're going to put first finger down like a regular one, and then you're going to have a whole step, which means your fingers are not touching, and then you're going to have a half step, and then you're going to have another whole step, which should look something like this. This is finger pattern 1, so it should look whole, half, whole. Finger pattern 1 for violins and violas. Now for cellos, it's going to be a little bit different. Finger pattern 1 is going to be putting first finger down on a regular one, then you're going to put a whole step, which would be to 3, and then 4, right? So it should be open, 1, 3, 4. That is your first finger pattern. Finger pattern number 2 is going to be with the low 2. This is going to be, instead of having a regular 2, it's going to be a low 2, which means that you're going to squeeze first finger and you're going to squeeze second finger. So if you put your instrument up, you're going to put first finger, and then you're going to do a tight half step to your second finger. Then you're going to put third finger down and fourth finger down, which should look something like this. First finger and second finger are touching close together. That is finger pattern number 2. For cellos, finger pattern number 2 is going to be if you put first finger down, and then it's going to be a half step, just like the violins and the viola, which means that it's going to be second finger, and then a whole step, which would be fourth finger. So it's going to be open, 1, second finger, 4. That is for cellos. That is your second finger pattern. And the last finger pattern that we're going to look at today is finger pattern number 3, which includes a high 3 for violins and viola, which means that your third finger is now going to be squeezed next to your fourth. So it's a whole step between 1 and 2, a whole step again, and then a half step. So if you put your finger pattern down, first finger down, a whole step away, so separate those fingers, another whole step, separate 2 and 3, and then a tight half step between 3 and 4. And if you look at it, that is going to be how it's going to look. So that is finger pattern number 3, whole, whole, half step. Okay. Now finger pattern number 3 for cellos is going to be different, and it's going to be, you're going to, instead of putting your first finger down on a regular one, you're going to put it back a half step, so it's going to be a low one. Then you're going to have to extend your 2 a little bit more because it has to be like a regular 2. Like if first finger was normal and your second finger was here, that is where your 2 has to go, but instead it has to have a low one. So you got to put 1, extend for 2, and 4. That completes finger pattern number 3 for cellos. Now, a little exercise that you guys can do to really warm up and to really put into your brain the 3 different finger patterns and to really memorize what each finger pattern is, because they're all very different. You can put your finger pattern down. For example, let's do finger pattern 1, which was whole step, half step, whole step. So a space between your 1 and 2, a tight 2 and 3, and a space between 3 and 4. For cellos, what was finger pattern number 1? 1, first finger, then 3, then 4. That is finger pattern 1. So you're going to put finger pattern 1 down. And a little exercise that you guys can do to memorize finger pattern 1 and see how each finger is supposed to feel when you're in this position, in this finger pattern, is to just lift first finger off 10 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now you do second finger. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Third finger. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Fourth finger. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And as I'm doing this, I'm making sure that I have a very straight line and that I'm not flexing like this or inward like this, but that it's very straight and relaxed. And I'm making sure that none of my other fingers go up into outer space, like alien fingers. So I'm not going 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Everything stays planted down, and I'm just moving that finger that is meant to be. And now you can do 1 and 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth, 2 and 3, and 3 and 4. Now you got to make sure that everything stays nice and relaxed when you're doing this. And you can do this for all the finger patterns. So it's a little exercise that you guys can plan to really make sure that your fingers memorize how each different finger pattern feels on your instrument and on your fingers as well. Okay, so now we are going to go into scales. First of all, we're going to start with G major scale. So for G major, we're going to do 2 octaves. And for this exercise, I really want you to do 2 things. 1, really focus on the sound quality that you are producing. And 2, really focus on your intonation to make sure that each and every single one of the notes that you are playing is in tune. So first of all, let's look at the notes in a G major scale. So first we have G, followed by A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and G. So G major has 1 sharp, F sharp, and we have to make sure that on the D it's a high 2 for violins and violas. And for cellos, it's a 3, a high 3, so 1, 3. So let's start with the G major scale. And first, we're going to count, I'm going to count you guys off, and then you guys can start with me. G, then A, whole step to a B, half step to a C, sharp, G. So if we look at the finger patterns that we just learned, what finger pattern do you guys think is going to be used on the G string and the D string? Finger pattern number 1. Finger pattern 1 looks like this. So we had open G, then A, then you got to do a whole step for B, then a tight for C, then an open D, or 4th finger for D, whichever one you want to use. And then we got E, whole step again to an F sharp, tight half step to a G, and then we go back down. That is finger pattern number 1 for the G string and the D string. Now for cellos, you're going to use finger pattern number 1 as well. We got open G, then we got A, then you got to put 3 for B, then C, a half step to C, then open D, then E, then a whole step to an F sharp, and then a half step to a G. So it's finger pattern 1 for the G major scale on both the G string and the D string. Now we're going to do that in half notes, up all the way up to the upper octave G, and then coming all the way down in half notes. One, two, ready, go. So violins, on the A and the E string, you are going to use finger pattern number 2, which is a low 2. You got to make sure that on the A string it's a B and a C half step, C natural, then the D and the E, and on the E string it's an F sharp, first finger, and then a tight half step to a G. Now violas, it's going to be different for you because you need to shift to make sure that you hit that really high G. So on the A string, you gotta go A, then B, then C, then you gotta shift right where the D is, where your third finger should have been. You're gonna put first finger down. Then whole step to an E, whole step to an F sharp, half step to a G. Then back down, E, D, and then you travel back to first position, C, A, and so on and so forth. So that would be for the violas. It is very important that we learn what our whole steps and our half steps are because they will help us play our scales and everything else in tune. If we understand where the spaces need to be and where the half steps need to be, we will play better in tune. For example, all of our major scales follow a pattern of whole steps and half steps. For a major scale, it's going to be whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. And all of the major scales follow this. So if you recognize this pattern or if you learn this pattern, you will be able to play most of your major scales. Now we learned that G major has one sharp, which is F sharp, and now D major, we're going to learn it has two sharps. The first sharp is going to be F sharp, and the second sharp is going to be C sharp. Okay, so now let's go into our D major scale. The whole step, half, whole step, half. So if we start with the D major, we gotta go to a whole step E, then a whole step F sharp, and then a half step G. Open A, whole step B, whole step to a C sharp, and then a half step to a D. So this is going to be finger pattern number 1 as well on the D string and the A string for both violin and viola. Now for cellos, it's going to be the exact same thing. Starting from your D string, E, F sharp, G, open A, B, C sharp, D. And that completes your D major scale. So let's go ahead and play our D major scale and make sure that you're really listening to make sure that each of your notes is in tune. So 1, 2, ready, go. And that completes your D major scale. Now the last scale that we are going to learn is going to be C major. C major has no sharps and no flats, which means that everything is going to be natural. So for cellos and for violas, this will be easier because you have a C string. So you would just start with open C. This is for cellos, open C, then D, then E, third finger, C, D, E, F, then open G, then A, then B, third finger, then C, a half step. Now for violas, it's going to be open C string, then D, then E, then a half step to an F, then a whole step to a G, or you can use open G, first finger A, B, second finger, half step to a C, and that is where your scale ends. So for both the cellos and the viola, you're going to use once again finger pattern number 1, which means whole step, half step, whole step. Whole step between 1 and 2, half step, and 3. For cellos, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4. That is going to be the finger pattern that you're going to be using. Now for violins, it's going to be a little bit trickier. If you want a challenge, you can do this in third position, which I will go over how to do it in third position. Or you can just do it in first position, which you would just start with third finger on the G string, and then open D, E, F natural, so that would be a low 2, then G, then open A, then B, then a low 2 once more for C. So for this one, you would pretty much be using low 2, which would be finger pattern number 2. If you want to do it in third position though, you would put first finger on that C, so it should be first finger A, B, C. Right where that C is on the G string, you would put first finger down, and then you would do a whole step to a D, whole step to an E, half step to an F natural, then G on the D string. Now we're on the D string, G, A, whole step to a B, and a half step to a C. So this is the finger pattern number 3 that we looked at, which looks like this: whole step, half. And this is going to be if you're going to do C major for violins in third position. So let's try it, and let's look at this and really keep in mind your finger patterns and your whole steps and your half steps to make sure that everything is in tune. Ready? 1, 2, ready, go. Alright guys, so that's going to be the end for the scales and the finger patterns that we looked at. Make sure that you keep practicing your skills, and I know it's tedious work, but it's really what makes a good musician really play well in tune and really be able to focus on the sound that they are producing from their instruments. Make sure that if you still want to keep challenging yourself, you can keep going into higher positions in your instrument, just following the whole half steps that I taught you guys, and you guys can just figure out the notes if it has to be a whole step away or if it has to be a half step away, continuing up into the higher ranges of your instrument. Thank you guys for watching, and make sure that if you guys need any help that you guys reach out to us, and we will try our best to help you guys. Thank you.